Hi there. We're back here at it again. Today we have a special guest, Sue Dubow. Welcome, Sue.
Hi, Jacob. Hi, Ruben.
Hello,
I've
Sue.
never met Ruben in person, but I'm sure he's a very cool guy.
He's better in person.
Clearly, you don't know about me.
So, Sue, thank you for, again, being here with us. And you know what, Sue? I was excited about having you for a couple of reasons. Well, more than a couple. But you're a former colleague of mine. We worked together at a special school, K through 12 school. We've had some members from that school come on. And one of the things that that always sparked my interest about you is that you always brought music, or you love music. And you could see in your face when you talked about that. And I would listen in sometimes in the lunchroom. I was quiet, but I hear you talking to your colleagues. And I'm like, oh, because, you know, we were in elementary, middle, and high school, but we ate together a lot of times, right? And I'm like, oh, what's Sue going to say today? And it seemed like I think we had the same lunch all the time. And so I would listen in. And can you just tell us a little bit about that? Do you remember those times where you brought music to the classroom, and how did that look like?
Oh, well, let's just start when I was in 6th grade. I wrote a lot of poetry because we had poetry contests, and we also had to present it in front of the class. And I had listened to Robert Louis Stevenson and other authors, and I was kind of bored of presenting just regular authors, so I started writing my own. But I wrote comedy poetry, and my teacher brought my mother in and says, your daughter's really talented. She's got to take this a step and beyond. She's got something going on. And I keep writing it, and I would enter contests and in junior high and win. And I tied with a serious poetry writer. And then eventually, you know, met a songwriter friend that wrote for Maureen McCormick, Marcia Brady. And I said, I want to be a songwriter. And I don't know, I was inspired to write songs. So when I got into teaching, I was writing a lot of songs for children and comedy songs, mostly songs about friendship and getting along. So that was part of the curriculum. And I also love dancing, creating steps, like I did Little Saint Nick, and we did little creative dances to that. But we would do songs, and we would act them out and talk about the meaning of the songs. And
let me get this straight though. In class though, would you teach the kids the songs that you wrote?
I would teach the kids the songs I wrote. Wow. About friendship, about getting along, and other things, as well as folk songs, spirituals, and the typical ballads. In 1970, I think it was 79, after my teaching credential and my program, which was humanistic, I was offered a job on an ESA grant at Marquez and Coliseum School. And I had never really taught music for the curriculum. I had taught it as a camp counselor, but they wanted the kids to have cultural awareness and a knowledge of folk songs and spirituals and instrumentation. But anyway, I wanted to do it just to create, you know, to boost self-esteem and to do it by grade level. And of course, I never done that, but I came into the principal, Ruby Mills, and Jack Firmer, and I told him, this is what I'll do. I'll teach folk songs, I'll teach ballads, I have originals, and we're gonna split it up into grade levels, and the children will learn instrumentation and rhythm patterns, and they're just gonna have very good self-esteem. We'll come together once a month and we'll do sing downs. And I'd never done it, but I did it. And there was another woman. Who was
How old were you?
Like 21.
Oh my
and there was another woman with a music credential that was supposed to get the job. They didn't really like her that much because she was old, and she was just going to teach musical phrases and songs that were pretty boring. So Ruby Mills just said, I want you, and I want you to go to Coliseum and just meet with the principal, but you tell him that I want you. You're a done deal. So here's Sue. We didn't have, Common Core then, but, I did this program. I had my own office at 21, shared with the school counselor named Lulu Diggs. That was her name. And I went from class to class teaching these folk songs, ballads, spirituals, originals, and rhythm patterns. And I bought my own instruments, and the children learned by modeling, echoing, and it was listen, sing, show, not just sing okay, but really put as much effort as you can and show it in your face and be enthusiastic. And if it wasn't good enough, I really made them repeat and do it again. And they loved it. They loved it. And sometimes we did, theme songs. If it was Martin Luther King Day, we taught songs about peace and brotherhood. And whatever the theme was, if there were Halloween,
Sue, you weren't teaching a particular subject. You were hired as sort of like a music teacher?
It was a multicultural music teacher.
I see.
Assigned in teaching music and singing in order to boost self-esteem. It was an ESA grant. And they even had a music teacher, a regular music teacher.
Oh, besides that person,
besides me. But my job was to, through music and through these songs, children's self-esteem would be lifted, and they would have more cultural awareness. And it was a feel-good type program. They had the money to spend. This other woman just pretty much taught songs, rhythm, musical phrases, and the curriculum. And I even worked with her on the 6th grade culmination, and we worked together. But mine was, a feel-good type program where it would be more cultural awareness. And
so when you worked at, I'm assuming, Elizabeth Learning Center?
Mm-hmm.
What were you teaching there?
No. So what ended up happening is the grant, of course, the money ran out, and then there was busing, and they laid off half their staff. They were a small staff, like K-5. And of course, I was on a probationary credential. I had to pass 2 more sections of the test, but they still let me do the program. But they cut all the special programs, and my principal was very upset, but there was nothing to do that she could do. So I subbed in various schools. I think it was Montebello and East LA, and many schools, and they offered me jobs, but a principal friend of my mom said, don't take those schools that are in combat communities, because I don't want you there. Just wait. I know certain people. So I was living in West near UCLA, and I had a C-level bilingual. That wasn't A-level then, but I had a knowledge of Spanish. And I didn't have a music credential, but I had this knowledge of music, and I taught music. But I realized if you want to be a music teacher, LAUSD has certain provisions. You have to be a genuine music teacher unless you're doing an ESA grant or something like that. So what I did is I realized I need to do general subjects. So I went to one school, and I was C-level, and they loved me. But in 3 weeks, I think that they said, isn't she A-level? And the guy didn't know I was C. And he says, you have to be a long-term sub, you're not A-level. And I started crying because I had the ideal class. It was 20 children, perfectly behaved, in this tiny little school near Dodger Stadium, forgot the name of it. But he says, I want to keep you a long-term if there's a regular class that comes up that's not.
What was that subject long-term? What was the specific subject you were teaching?
Well, I was teaching 2nd grade. It was a 2nd grade class.
Oh, so it's a second, I see.
So they wanted, apparently, he thought C-level was fine, but then 2 weeks later, when they were checking everyone, they said, oh, she's C. And he said, can't she stay? She's doing great. And they said, no, she has to be A level. So I learned all this and eventually ended up getting the bilingual credential after I took the test like 3 times. But,
so how did you get to Elizabeth though?
Yeah.
So then Elizabeth, my mom's friend was a principal of Loma Vista named Stan Bunyan, and he knew Dr. Gallups. And I went in and they had a need for sandwich teachers. That is because the school could not house all the students. They had so many students, thousands. So certain classes had 38 in a class. So they brought in 4 sandwich teachers to alleviate
What's a sandwich
that.
teacher? I mean, sandwich teacher.
A sandwich teacher is someone that goes into the class, each classroom. Let's say you have 28 students. You have maybe 9 students in one room. And then the other teacher has like 29 students and 9 of them are yours. So you service those students for an hour. Then you move to the next class where your students are housed.
Oh, geez.
And you work with another teacher for an hour and a half. And then you work with another teacher for an hour and a half.
So,
and after lunch, the lab opens up and certain teachers went home who were specialists and classes opened up. I mean, classrooms. So then I got my own classroom from maybe it was 12:30 to 2:30. Because
so
I didn't have enough classes.
So were you ever teaching a particular subject?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What subject was that?
So what it would be is, let's say in the morning, I would teach, if that teacher was teaching reading, I would teach my students reading, the 9 of them. But sometimes it ended up being the whole class too, of her children. So I would teach reading and phonics. And then, this is crazy.
I never heard of this before.
And then I moved to the next class and I would be teaching Spanish reading and writing. Then it was recess. Then Janet Miracle. Then I would be teaching, writing and math.
So as a language arts teacher, I'd be curious for you to tell me specifically, how would you relate the language arts portion of your teaching, the reading, with music? Did you ever do that? If so, what did it look like?
I didn't always teach music in those classrooms.
Okay.
But in one classroom, Janet Miracle, we would kind of have 30 minutes sectioned out for me to do music or singing or folk songs or rhythm or, whatever that was that I would have 30 minutes to do. And I didn't always have it in the other classes, but she really said, no, I know you do music. We don't have a music teacher. Ms. Dubow is going to teach us music and singing and folk songs and, I didn't do the blues or anything, but rhythm, instrumentation, things like that. So it was maybe once a week that we would do that, and they really looked forward to it. Then, after a few years passed, they had more classes when year round happened. Now everybody has their own class because one track is always off. So they had the room to house everybody. And therefore, now I get my own class, finally, not have to go from class to class.
So you really saw history too, because you saw the beginning of year-round schooling as well, right? And now that's
right.
gone.
And then there was divided day. I mean, there was one time where it was split day where I taught 7:20 to 11:50. And the other person came in at 12 to maybe 3:45.
Wow.
So we used to do that too because we didn't have enough classrooms. But then they brought more classes onto the campus. And of course, my first classroom was, not every student was the best because certain teachers decided who would go into the next year. And I didn't get all the high kids, but that was okay. I mean, they were cool. They were all nice. And that was before the school became a learning center. I think it started at pre-K to 5, and then later It became the learning center. Then I eventually got my own students. And I did music or drama, usually the few times a week, the last 45 minutes per day. And so I knew that I wasn't going to be a genuine music teacher, but more of a music teacher kind of who developed cultural awareness and boosted self-esteem through all these techniques. And that was going to be the way it was going to be. And they brought in music teachers. Some were great, some were terrible.
You mentioned that several times their self-esteem rose or got higher. How did you see that manifest itself? How do you mean that?
Yeah, I had certain students that were very shy and wouldn't participate in activities where they were called upon. They were very nervous. And when they were singing and when they were doing these activities, learning the original songs, learning the dances, having a part in instrumentation, they shined. They just loved it. And they would go home, and I would get parents in parent conference and say, Ms. Dubow, I don't know, what was the song you were teaching? Giving Child. My son is singing it, and he's shy, doesn't really talk about school, but now he's excited. And, it kind of made them shine and bloom, and, it was a tool to help them. And sometimes, like after I would teach the song, they would listen, sing, and we would chart it, and they would sing it, and they would pick out the words and learn the sight words. And we would talk about the meaning. What does this mean to you to be a giving child? What do you see in the world that's giving? What do you see that's selfish that goes on? So we would engage them.
So you would teach sight words through a song.
Yeah,
you
sometimes
teach the song first, and then
teach the song, then chart it, and then
chart it and break down.
And then
the
when
words.
they have the sheet, and they would circle, they would learn the words, and it really helped. And then sometimes we put movement to the song as well, and that was exciting. One time, I won an award for outstanding use of music in the classroom. Actually, Richard Taylor, who's not at our school anymore, we videoed this song, and we had 3 classes: singing Giving Child, We're the Children of Tomorrow with Our Footprints in the Sand. And we figured out we would make a heart on the playground. They all made a heart, and we said, Giving Child, open up your heart. So there was a heart, and as we sang, open up your heart, the heart opened up, and we videoed this.
That's nice. Go on. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I'm just saying, and it was 3 classes, and everything, and we choreographed it. It wasn't too difficult, but the children even gave ideas of what movements to use for the phrases of the song. And we put it on a video, and then we sent it to LAUSD because they had a competition, and I didn't care about winning or anything. But then Richard went in, and he told me he attended the assembly over on Beaudry, and he said we won for outstanding use of music.
Congratulations!
And he videoed it, so it was partly use of video as well. I wasn't so great at the technology part.
I like that you included the students in participation of the movement. I have a question though that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. What do you do when you encounter resistance from students about singing? How do you get them up and going about that?
I don't force them. If they are resistant, I just say, well, learn the words and just do the best you can, unless they are acting like fools on the stage, then I might say, I think you might need to sit out. But I don't focus on them, because sometimes if I focus and say, you're not doing it right, look at you, you're not then, it's not good. It backfires. Sometimes what we do is like we have 4 kids performing the song. Like we'll say, okay, now we're going to perform this for the parents or for an event. Let's have 6 of you do it in front of us. How about you guys tell me what you liked and what you think could be better in the song that they sing? So of course the kid who's resistant always will say, oh, he didn't, have enough enthusiasm. He was shaking too much, or this one looked like she was a statue. And those are the kids that sometimes they won't be participating as much or show them, but then they might.
That is fascinating. That exact same thing happened last week. I had students turn in a podcast, and I teach them what to look out for. And this kid is raising his hand who didn't turn in his podcast. Yeah, he needs to be more. He didn't ask follow-up questions. He didn't do it right. And I'm like, I was so tempted to say, coming from the person who didn't even turn his, but I bit my tongue. But maybe through their participation that way, they are participating in a way, and then the next time they will.
And also, like during it was Christmas show, I did instead of singing, it was improvisation or movement to Benny Goodman's swing song. That goes da 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 da. So what I did is we had instruments from Oriental Trading Company, and we had trombones and flutes. They were fake, blow up, and regular instruments. And so what they did is they acted out that they were the orchestra. And the kids that are afraid to sing, they would, show that they're doing the instrumentation and perform. And they didn't really have to sing, but they were acting it out. And I remember it was, who was it? Eli, who's a teacher at our school, Lucy, their son, who's
Eli Gomez?
Yeah, his son, they came up to me and they said, you're not going to believe this, but our son, he was so excited. He was using the blow-up instrument and he was moving. They go, he's kind of shy. You'll probably know who it is. His name is adorable, blue eyes.
You're kind of doing, or you kind of did the School of Rock thing, because Jack Black had, the talented players, and then the rest, what do you do? Well, one was promoting, somebody else did the lights. Everybody has, something to do.
And he didn't have to sing. You didn't have to, but you were improvising, it was so cute. I mean, it was just an idea I had. So we just got like trombones and flutes and instruments, and they acted like they were the Benny Goodman band. And again, the kids who are shy, it just brought them out. And another way is Anna Connie Torres, who's a special ed teacher, and I often teamed. And she said, you know what, let's apply for this grant, this drum grant. And I never played the drums, but I used to use rhythm in my teaching. Like we would do a rhythm pattern. I do, you do, I do, like, and the kids echo back, and then the patterns became more difficult. So we applied, we got the drums, and we did a show. And I taught the kids how to play drum. I went to one workshop and they played rhythmic patterns and that went with other patterns. I made them up and went to some workshops, and the kids learned the patterns. And those that didn't want to sing, somehow in the drums, all of their fears disappeared, and they did fantastic. And then we performed the Rainbow Bridge, like a play. Veronica Nelson helped me, and Anna Connie, and Maria Gonzalez, and the kids dressed up in costumes, Native American. It was beautiful. It was a drum show.
I think it's amazing that you went for it. You and your colleague went for it, got the grant, and then did it. I mean, and then had the kids be successful with it. Because a lot of times people don't even know those grants are out there, but it looks like you guys are seeking them out at the time. And you know, that kind of gets me to the next topic I wanted to go to, because I don't want to forget. Because when I think about you, I think about your music talent, and I think about your background and what you brought to the school. And because I also felt like you had a pretty good sense of humor. But that being said, do you miss it though? Because I'm not sure if our audience knows, but Sue is retired now. And what do you miss most about any of that? I mean, what's the one thing you go, man, I really miss that? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I'm gone. But what's one thing, Sue, that you feel like, hey, I miss doing that one thing that we did in the class? Or
I loved creative writing. I would give them a topic and they would take off. And I remember some that said, I can't write. And, you know, I would give them ideas, and they would, like Ruben was talking about those black composition notebooks.
yeah.
I get them every year. I buy them, and people are like, why are you buying them? You don't have to. You could get them from the supply. I said, I don't know if the supply room is going to have them. So I'd buy them, and those would be journal, you know, those would be creative writing journals, you know, in the morning when they would have breakfast, or, you know, if I would think of a topic to write about, or brotherhood and peace, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean to you? What upsets you in the world when people are not fair or treat people unjustly? And they could, you know, take off, or they would make up a name of a city or a monster. And those that would write just a little, pretty soon they were writing a lot. And I was like, wow. And sometimes I would say it's just, you don't want to always just write a lot. It's the quality of writing too that matters. But some would say, I can't think of anything to write. And I would give them some ideas, and then like they would brainstorm and make a little web, and then their ideas would flow. And
that's a good strategy.
I do miss that, because you see the kids just blossom. I see the kids last year, they were writing beautiful stories, and they would go and share them with the administrator. They would say, I want to go read this to Mr. Lennon, Mr. Kershaw, Miss Sweet, you know, Miss Ochoa.
All the greats.
Can I go? And they would run and read their writing.
Right.
Or, you know, math problem solving. They would want to talk about like how they solved the problem differently than this one. And I just love seeing kids who start out saying, you know, this is the most I can do. And I said, okay is not okay enough, because in the world, you have to be better than okay.
Right.
It's, if you want to get a job, be better. Remember that. If you don't remember anything else, just remember that. So
I think it's great that you love the writing and the reading. We ask our guests this quite often. Is there a go-to book you have for your kids, or a book that really you enjoyed? Because I think you taught more like second, third grade, correct? Most of the time?
Yeah, I taught second grade. I still love The Giving Tree. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, because it teaches you could, you know, people can be different and still be friends. And I love Amelia Bedelia, Hit the Lights, Break a Leg, because some of these kids didn't always, I would say idioms, and I would tell children, let's break a leg when we were doing the show, and they said, why? And I said, oh, sorry. So from that point on, I read them Amelia Bedelia, because they weren't you know, familiar with the idioms.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love A Chair for My Mother. I love A House is a House for Me. I love Owl and the Pussycat, and of course all the Martin Luther King books. They're wonderful. But I got to tell you, yeah, I do. I remember there's a student of Jacob's that I had. One thing I just loved about, I don't know if you're going to get to that question. Maybe I should wait till you ask me what I loved about being in a K-12 school.
No, answer that now. What did you like about being at that school? I have some reasons why I liked it, but why did you like it, Sue?
No, I mean, it didn't start out as K-12, but
that's right. It's K-5.
I did really love, you know, I loved the people, because we shared ideas. And when I was young, and age 21 or 22, many teachers took me under their wing, like Mr. Starr, Miss Miracle, Mr. Davis, and some other teachers, Mary Beth Lillywhite, Doreen Saito, Penny Brown, even, and they teach you a lot. There's so much you can learn from teachers as resources.
Sure.
There are teachers, there is a couple that said, I teach reading this way. I don't need to learn a new method or math. I know what is good for the kids. I don't need to be taught a new way. But I always enjoy using other teachers as resources
Sure.
or team players. I mean, there's people that are kind of want to do their own thing, but I think you can learn so much from people on your team. I had a great second grade team, Maria Sanangelo and all those people. Maureen Gonzalez taught me a lot too, and I don't know, it's just they were great resources. Liz Padilla, I could go on and on Navarez. But then the middle and high school teachers teach you more in a specialty area that you might not know in science. I'm not the greatest science person, but there was Betty Vick, who was upper grade, and she helped me with some experiments with.
Now, Sue, you mentioned collaboration as being really part of your teaching journey. I couldn't agree more. But was there a particular mentor you had that inspired you in your teaching career?
Well, Janet Miracle is one of the people I worked with as a sandwich teacher. And she was just so organized. She would make everything more simplistic, because I think I'm a detail-oriented person. I'm going off in many directions. And she kept me focused. And she said, first you gotta, start out with the objective and make it that this is what we're gonna do, and this is what we do, blah, 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 blah. And now we're all gonna do it together. And here's an example. And she just made me more comfortable with the 7-step plan. And she was also really balanced and calm, and I'm more hyper. But if somebody was acting up, or she would know how to handle it. She'd say, oh, we don't do that. Now, come on, we don't do that. And maybe you need to do this. But she never overreacted. And she was just in great control. And I don't know, that was good for me. She was like more structured and just calm.
I think it's amazing that your life mentor's name is Janet Miracle.
I know. I remember Miss Miracle. That is great.
Yeah, she moved it. Yeah, she was great. And then when she left this school to move and do something else, she wanted to come back. And I think it was Mr. Renier was there. And she says, I wonder if there's any positions, because now I'm coming back. I said, you know what? You want to come back? I'll get you in. And I walked her to his office. I know they were going to have an opening. I said, you have to hire her back. She was my mentor, and here's why, ABC. She's good for organized, structured, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, say no more. And I go, you have to hire her. And she got hired the next day. I'm pretty forward. So, she came back, and she was my mentor. So, and of course, Mr. Starr, my buddy, who's now retired in his 80s, he's also is a mentor as well, and
he always seemed like a very kind man,
he's very kind and balanced and
patient, very patient.
He taught me patience.
Yes.
And
wow.
There's some administrators that they were good. They were all, helping me. And one thing I learned, and I'll get back to your student in a second, is a principal friend of my mom's from Loma Vista always said, when you go to school, always remember this when you're newly hired. Always make sure the kids end with something positive. Don't let them go home and be angry. Like you said, you didn't do this. I'm so angry with you. Why did you do that? You made my day bad. Because that's what they're going to go home and tell their parents, that she did this and blah, blah, blah. Instead, you say, you got a lot going on. You got this and this. You could work on this. We'll work on this next time, even if you're so angry. And when you start a conference, you don't say, your kid is a piece of whatever. Even though you want
family
to
program.
say, your kid has this going. Did you ever know? Really you know, a lot of ability in math, analysis, and talented. We'll need to work on this, and that's what you do. And you
Good
never
reminder.
ever start negative, and it always works. And you do it with the principal, even if you're angry. You say, you know, this is going good. This is going good. Oh, you know, I like the way you did this. By the way, I think we need to do this. Because if you start attacking administration negatively, just every day you're attacking, they don't like that.
No.
You can be have constructive
it's always good to be
ideas,
positive.
but don't attack. So he always said, remember that and you'll have a good career. And he's right.
Good reminder.
Smart advice.
And then Max, I'll tell you about your brother's student. I had a student,
Max,
we would have library time and the kids would check out library books on their level, second grade. If it was too easy, I would say, this is a picture book. This is not good for you. Go up a level, maybe no more than 2. But Max, I had a student that would always check out books on World War II, presidents, how government works, the executive branch. And he was always doing that. And he said, you know, I wonder why Hitler did this. And I wonder why, you know, Japan did. So pretty soon, you know, I noticed, wow, he's just very into that. And I happened to be talking to you and you talk government. And I said, you know what, would you mind if he visited your class like once a week for government? Because I don't want to bore him, but I think he could get more out of your class. And you took him.
I said, hell no, Sue. Teach your own damn kid, Sue. No. No, I said, yeah, of course. Bring your own.
He excelled. He was so happy. I just remember, I don't know what you did, but some kids in your class went, that kid of yours, he's so smart. Oh my God.
I totally remember that. Oh my gosh. That is such a good memory. You have a great memory. And that
he was
kid,
like 8 years old and you need to challenge him. So
that is a good piece of having a K-12 school, like you mentioned before, to be able to send kids to upper class, classes above them, and they got something out of it, and my students got something out of it. They're like, wow, this kid is paying attention.
Scott Barber had the class economics and career day and all that, and we were always talking, and the leadership students also had a curriculum where they taught kids budgeting. It was a whole curriculum, how to write checks, you know, how to budget, etc. And that went on for a week, and it was wonderful. And they taught it. But Scott Barber and I were brainstorming. I said, my students are doing posters about the theme of creativity and the future, and you know, what type of things they would like to invent that would make a difference in the world. And he said, how about if our class is like hosting you and they present these projects of the future and they have to explain what they are and what is the purpose, how they will benefit the world, why is this project important, what is the impact? And so we'll grade them on all that, and then we'll come up with 3 winners. And we'll judge. So the last year of school, I ended up with the kids that were higher. For some reason, I usually end up with the students that might be lower achievers, but I was lucky. I mean, the last year I had students who were able to who were more readers and higher achievers, which is not usually what I would get. But it was just wonderful when student had a invention where they would go out in space and on these ropes and go out, I don't know, and explore space. And some woman who developed a type of oven for pregnant mothers.
By the way, my internet connection's unstable, so I might get disconnected.
No, it was just they had some pretty interesting inventions, and they would, you know, I said, don't just try not to read off the poster. Try to memorize what you wrote and make it interesting. Like, the reason I did this for this invention is this, and how it will make a difference. Make it meaningful. Don't just be reading it. Right. And when I remember them presenting, some of the seniors would say, I don't believe these kids are in second grade. But I want to prepare them for the future, you know.
Oh, wow.
So even if they didn't win, they all got some type of prize, and we posed with them. It was just
What
it
a
was
great
wonderful.
idea. And Scott is such a good person.
And I just love the collaboration with these kids. And another thing, because I'm not so great with technology, as you guys are.
Wow.
So the high school kids, when they would come in and help us when we were learning the computer, you know, writing programs that was so helpful because they're so quick.
Yeah.
But now these little kids can learn programs very quickly, even 3-year-olds, I'm sure. But the high school kids and junior high were always helpful. I would always ask certain the technology teachers if they could send a few students, or even students, I think, from history that knew computers, they would come in. And I think they enjoyed it. They also read to the students, and they were role models for them. And I've seen many generations grow up at Elizabeth and become successful. And it's just so cool.
It's so awesome to see that, right?
Cool.
So you're so multi-talented. And before we let you go, I just want to ask you one more thing.
Dr. Demento, right?
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, no, it is. But I was just thinking, I can't believe you've never been like, you know, threatened for lawsuit regarding the Sulu name. Because I think someone else has that name. Isn't that?
Oh, no, yeah, George Takai. I don't think...
He hasn't wanted to sue you at all? Or what's going on here? Maybe you're the better Sulu, I think. That's probably why. The nicer Sulu?
Well, because it was Sulu Ben, and then the sorority, they shortened it to Sulu.
Oh, I thought you got that name with Dr. Demento.
Well, the sorority used it, and I didn't really like it, but I accepted it. And then he said, when I came on the show live on Sunday nights, he said, I really want to give you a name that's different than your regular name. And also maybe people can't look you up in the phone book then. Although one kid who's now a producer did look me up because he knew my real name. He said, this is Sue Lubin, her real name, but we call her Sulu. Well, he looked me up in Westwood and called me on the landline in the dorm and went, hi, Sulu. I got your name from the white pages. And I said, oh, really? So I didn't really use the maiden name anymore. But
were you on the show while you were in college?
Yeah, well, actually,
yeah.
So in 74, 75, I started writing comedy because someone said, you could do better than these songs that they're playing on the radio. He has unreleased. I bet you could. And so I sent him like 4 or 5 and he liked them. And then I eventually got on the live show, but I was getting fan mail from to his show and it landed at Crossroads of the World in Hollywood, and his then manager and secretary was saying, we're getting a lot of fan mail about you, your song, I Love Your Toes, and Fly Away CT Fly, and Dream Dirty Dreams. But I don't do that in the class. I
hope not so.
So she said, why don't you do a little concert at UCLA with Junk Food Junkie and a few other people. And so I did, and then I got more confidence. And then later, you know, I never really sang in front of a lot of people, but I did small things. And then my mom and a friend entered me in this contest, and I didn't know they did it, but there were 11 winners, and they entered the Toe Song and CT Fly in the Santa Monica Music Festival in '76. And Peter Palmieri was the host. And I told him I've never sung in front of a large group, and I'm probably going to pass out. And he said, I'll tell you what, you just look over the audience's head. They're going to love you. Everyone else is doing ballads. You're doing these funny songs. They'll love you. And I have his intro if you ever want it. And he called me a teacup with fur line around it. And if children can relate to my songs, then everyone can. And it was really cool. But I was doing Dr. Demento. Let's see. When I was hired, I was doing the show Sunday nights. and I was still teaching.
Wow.
But I kept the comedy out of the classroom that was not appropriate. But we did a song. One of the kids, when the Challenger blew up, one of the kids said, "This is horrible, Miss Dubow. You should write a song about it." And I did. We Will Remember Krista. We did it on the guitar and on the tape recorder. And do you know that it was played, I think, on, maybe it was on KBC, and it was also on Dr. Demento. He played the children and me, but I got a release, and it's really pretty. We will remember Krista, you know, and the American Dream. It's very touching, and it's not high production, but we did some songs with the children that were appropriate, and like Giving Child, and We Will Remember Krista, and the comedy that's too crazy, I kept out of the classroom, and I was
smart lady.
I was Sue Lubin or Sue Dubow, and Demento is also a teacher. He taught folk music at UCLA, and he graded on the curve. He was told to grade on the curve. The other jazz teacher didn't have to, so he could give more A's. So Dr. Demento was very upset because certain students worked hard in his class and they got a C, and he had to give a certain amount of C's. And he said because of him giving certain people C's, they wouldn't get into med school. So he didn't like grading on a curve, but he has an MA in folk music.
I did not know that.
And it was fun. So I still did that. The show every other Sunday, there was various people. Weird Al would do one Sunday, I would do another, and Al got famous, and we still get together. And I met Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, on the show. That was really fun. It was,
wow.
It was at KMET, which is no longer there. There's like a high school there now.
I didn't know that.
On Sunset near Wilton, you see this green field. It's a high school. It's no longer Metro Media Square. But yeah, I think Dr. Demento also helped me get more self-confidence, and he can encourage me to write. And I think any good writer has to keep writing, no matter what the genre. And you get better by continuing to write. And so that's why I tell the kids, keep writing. And I keep doing it. I did singing telegrams for a while, for all occasions. And
you did it all.
Now I do it just somewhat, but not as much. And I did some TV and radio interviews, and Israel Today, and an ethnic album called If I Could Hold Thee Jerusalem, and Tommy the Throwaway Dog. Kim Fletcher, Nanoski's wife, her leadership students made the costume, made the scenery for it. It's about an abused dog who was thrown in a trash dumpster, and he was left to die. And she said, my friend Laura, who wrote the book, she wrote a book based upon this, and said, let's do a mini musical. And I said, yeah, but I don't think I'm gonna have time because they do testing in the auditorium, and I don't think they're gonna let me use the auditorium. But one day I was driving on the freeway and a truck almost hit me and ran me off the road, and I knew it was a signal, a sign that I had to write the musical. So I wrote 12 songs to go with the musical. That 115 kids, 3 or 4 classes did it, sang it. We made a play out of it, and we raised money for Siaka, the animal shelter, and $500 or $600 went to the animal shelter. The rest went to the school student body, and to raise awareness of animal abuse. And I got to tell you, the leadership of Kim Fletcher's kids,
Kim Parker,
committee, who made everything, they're so wonderful. That's collaboration, and we performed it maybe 2 times. It was very touching. That's my, and I also did a musical called Spaghetti, which is an evil person trying to put children under their spell. I did that because the drama teacher told me to write an original play with few songs. So we did that too. But if COVID ends, I'd like to go back and volunteer.
Oh, you will go back. You're going to go back, and it's going to end, and you're going to contribute like you've been doing these last I'm going to say how many years. But I just wanted to thank you. I know Ruben feels the same way, to be on here to share your experiences with music, because not everybody does that. I think what you do, I think you probably think everyone does this, but they don't. You wrote a musical with 12, 13 songs. Nope, who does this? And these kids don't forget. And like you mentioned, how they come back and they say what you did for them. You did a lot, Sue, and you're still doing it. And I know you will. I know you'll continue doing that. And,
yeah, I will, because I just want, I'd like for things to be positive.
Sure.
In this difficult pandemic, we need to have positive things,
For sure.
and positive memories. And that school has given me so much. The parents have given me so much. The students, the staff, they're my friends. I really miss them so much. But when you go on to the campus and they go, Miss Dubow, then you're not that old, I guess.
No, you're not. No.
Thank you for joining us, Sue. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sue.